All right, guys, let's take a minute so I can tell you about Sleeper, a one-stop shop for all your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat on sports games in real time with other users. You can get the fastest scores, blazing fast sports news and sports alerts right at your fingertips. And of course, you can use Sleeper to play in fantasy leagues and win real money on picks contests. This is the way sports were meant to be enjoyed together. So download Sleeper today. Use promo code SBN to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. And you can pair that with another promo they have right now where you can get a $20 entry free with no deposit required. So get both of those things going. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states and growing. So check out Sleeper today. Get to it and go have some fun with sports this year. All right, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to the show. Coming to you a day early this week because we got some holidays going on. Honestly, I think for a lot of people, the holiday has already started. But welcome to the show regardless. The Seahawks played a game last week. They got a game this week. So we got some stuff to talk about. I am Brendan, and that is Brandon. We get together every week to do this. Brandon, how are you doing?
Always good after a victory, Brendan, and especially good after what's been a really fun season watching this team.
Mm-hmm.
It's great to win. Everybody wants to win, but they've not been painful victories at that as well. We haven't had the heart attack Hawks at play, so I'm feeling good, man.
Yeah, I think most people would agree with that. I think that most people didn't think this was going to be a spectacular year, and so far I would say that it has been. So we got 6 games left in this regular season, and then we'll see where things land for the postseason. But we got to get through these last 6 games first. We do have an interesting game coming up this weekend. But first, just to take a minute about the Titans game, not the most compelling game the Seahawks have played all year. So I know there may not be a lot to say coming out of it. But do you have any general thoughts after that particular bout?
I think it's one where you get right game is the way you think in mind on this. You did some adjustments offensively to get some things a little bit more with Sam being able to play a little more controlled and taking a little bit more of the easier throw out in the flat, giving him some simpler stuff at times. I thought, and defensively, I thought you played a really strong game. I thought Cam Ward. I was really not about you, but I was very impressed with Cam Ward. He's not a guy that I was thinking at all times when he was taking his number 1 overall pick that this is a guy that was deserving of being selected at that spot. But I can't deny the fact that the kid, and especially going back and watching the All-22, you're breathing down his throat constantly in this game. I don't know if he had 40 pressures. This was totally charted by PFF on this one, but I do think that you were really making his life hard and harassing him, and he was just sometimes finding a way. I think the future is very bright for them with that kid, as long as they can get that operation put together correctly out there.
Yeah, that was probably his best game of the year so far, especially given who it came against. Pretty fun game for him, pretty exciting. You definitely saw the upper limits of what he might be able to do in the pros. And it like a lot of people were a little down on the defense after that game, but I really think Cam Ward just did some really impressive stuff out there more than anything else.
Yeah, going back to Washington, we watched him all the way back at Wazoo, and you always saw the pocket toughness and the pocket awareness is very high on him and being able to sense what's around him. He also kind of adds this like little third aspect of it to where, he can get the ball to the guy without having his feet fully set and then needing to get his whole throwing motion into it. He's got a strong enough arm where he can kind of be hit and still kind of get that thing off. And he just played a marvelous game, I thought. He was really inspired in his play, and Seattle defense was taking it to him. I mean, they're making life hard. I also think a little bit of it was that second half where you lose Tayakata, and so you go into a little bit more of conservative mode, defensively speaking. They were dialing a lot more stuff up in the first half and blitzing and really coming after him in a major way. In fact, as much as they'd done all year in that first half. But then it seemed like once you had D'Anthony Bell out there that you just kind of pulled back on the stick a little bit.
Right, and it makes sense to do that because I don't think D'Anthony Bell played poorly or anything, but I do think what you can do is a little bit limited with him out there. And depending on how things go the rest of this week, we might not even we might be down to D'Anthony Bell for a big chunk of this upcoming game. We'll see what happens with Okada and Love, but no guarantee we have either of those guys. So that'll be interesting to see how much things get adjusted if that is the case.
Yeah. Also, Quandre brought back in the fold too, so that you never know, they may surprise us and say, "Hey, he's going to run out there over D'Anthony," because D'Anthony Bell's more of a strong safety. He's not a split shell guy, and that he can go free or strong. He is more strong, and Kobe is kind of already your strong. Kobe could maybe do some free safety stuff, but I'd estimate with Quandre, of course, you have more of a pure free back there, and if you just cut, maybe you aren't going to call as much of the intricate coverages this week, but maybe you don't think you feel like you have to because of the quarterback you're facing on the other side and the offense you're facing on the other side. But I thought that was a real key signing, giving you some insurance there.
Right. So one thing that we've kind of seen over the last few days, coming on the heels of that Rams game the previous week, of course, and then with some of the plays that happened against the Titans, there seems to be some concern about Sam Darnold with turnovers. According to PFF, he had 2 turnover-worthy plays that just didn't turn into turnovers on Sunday. Where do you stand when it comes to the whole turnover stuff? Because that was also something that Darnold was asked about by the media last week, and he talked about it, and it seems like a lot of Seahawks fans sounding off about it. Like, where are you when it comes to the turnover discourse?
I really feel like it's a bit overstated, to be honest with you. When it comes down to the turnovers from Sam Darnold, we have one game this year that you can very keenly point to and say his interceptions cost us this game. Aside from that, Brendan, what other game is it that his interceptions have cost us the game? And please don't mention Tampa Bay, where he threw 4 touchdowns and for 360 yards. That's not what I'm talking about here. That's him performing at a exceptionally high level throughout all that game, and a ball bounces off a helmet. So I don't think that can be one we go, well, there's one right there where he threw a pick in a game. See, because I know you don't think this, but I'm sort of intimating what I'm trying to pick up here, which is that I feel like there are Hawk fans a little bit here that I get this sense of, and frankly, I've kind of been around this track a couple times with Russell Wilson and with Geno Smith. So I'm kind of aware of this that exists within the fan base. And especially when it comes to quarterbacks, it just seems like there are those fans that'll go, I don't like this guy. I don't want this guy. I want something else. And they start from this position. And then you have a guy go out there and perform better and perform well. And they're dead silent when he surprises. They're quiet as hell. Then the second that he goes out and has a Rams type performance, they come leaking out of the woodwork to crow and to congratulate themselves on being right about something that they thought they saw in the offseason. And those people may be right, Brendan. They may be proven right on this, but they walked into this thing with a bias in their establishment of it. The same kind of biases I saw with Geno Smith, the same kind of biases I saw with Russell Wilson, on a different end of the scale in that way. And I think that's where, to me, I throw a lot of this kind of into the trash a little bit. It's not that you don't want a guy to, not worry about interceptions, or that to be a bit of an issue as far as what he's considering here. But I look at it as well as that Sam has not been a problem for us this year. Sam is winning us football games. Sam is playing the quarterback position at a high level. What is the benchmark, Brendan, we're expecting these quarterbacks to play at? The Stafford, Josh Allen level, and anything short of that kind of productivity is unacceptable? I mean, I kind of need you, if you can. I know it's not necessarily your outlook on it, but flesh this one out for me a little bit in what it is that we are looking to be chasing for a standard-wise at the quarterback position.
Yeah. I often wonder that as well. And the thing that I've been saying for a while now is that Sam Darnold is a guy who will put the ball in harm's way a little bit. He's not one of these quarterbacks that is all about risk management and preservation and just throwing the ball out of bounds or taking sacks over and over and over to avoid turnovers. He's going to turn it over every now and then. And the thing that I've said is, okay, deal with it. First of all, like, just kind of deal with it. These players are not perfect. With very rare exception, very few players in the NFL are perfect. So, get it out of your head that he's just going to do the exact right thing on every single play. And also, my other thing that I've come back to is that we have the number 3 scoring offense in football. And you can't take away the turnovers without taking away other stuff. You can't just carve the turnovers out and leave everything else in. If you tell Sam Darnold to stop turning the ball over, you're also going to lose some of the great throws that he's making that are risky, but they still turn into big plays and touchdowns and points. So, that's kind of how I feel about it. Yeah, the turnovers are a little bit high, but that is kind of what Sam Darnold has been his entire career, and it doesn't stop him from being a good or even great quarterback. So I feel like that's getting a little out of hand. I feel like I've said this a couple times already this year. People use the turnover stuff way too much to try to judge how good or bad a quarterback is, and it really doesn't correlate as strongly as people seem to think.
I'm glad to hear that you are on the same page with this. And some great stats that you just presented there about how good the offense has been. In addition, let's just remove Sam. How's the offense been? Well, executing high level, productive, putting points on the board consistently, getting out there and routing opponents. And I am with you on this. And I've got a theory on this, Brendan, being that when it was in the 2000 teens and things were moving to spread concepts as far as passing goes and a little more high volume passing, and there were so many easy passes built within, I think that you saw the interception numbers go down at that time a bit across the league, and that offenses and quarterbacks became hyper protective of the ball. I think we're transitioning back into old school football here, under center, play action, turning your back to the defense, more of, kind of having to push the ball down the field at times within the nature of how defenses are sometimes playing you, and especially with the stack box, structure. Throw the ball further down the field. That's less, more chances for things to sometimes go, askew. I think now, though, that what you saw with old school football, what you saw with 90s football and early 2000s, to your point on this, that brand of football was not as hyper, obsessed with interceptions being the end of the world. You didn't want them. You want to avoid them. You want your quarterback playing a clean game, but you're not going to necessarily say that this thing is the marker in itself of a quarterback failure or not success. Matt Stafford had 17 interceptions in the year that they went to the Super Bowl and won it, and that was recently. So having just led the league in interceptions that year. So it's one where you want to pay attention to it, but always the context matters. How's the offense playing around it? How's Sam Darnold playing around it? Right now, he's due to have 4,300 yards that he's projected to throw through. That's one of the best in all-time Seahawks history. He's going to have 29 passing touchdowns. I'm sure that's going to be probably top 5, Brendan, all time for passing touchdown for a Seahawks quarterback in our history? Somewhere in that neighborhood?
Well, you got Russ threw more than 30 a couple of times, and Geno did it one time. I think Dave Craig did it once. That's about it.
So probably a top 5 there. He's got an 106.2 quarterback rating, which I'm sure Russell had a year or two, or he's maybe a little bit higher than that. But if I'm not mistaken, that's probably higher. In fact, it is higher than Russell's career quarterback rating at this point, which has of course been brought down. He's throwing at 69.5 completion percentage rate, so almost a 70% completion rate, while he's averaging 9.3 yards per attempt. Those two numbers shouldn't go together. That should be your 65% when you're averaging 9.3 yards per attempt. So kind of what I'm saying is there's a lot of statistical markers here. PFF, top 3 rated quarterback in the sport. What do you want to pull out stat-wise to show that he's playing sterling, he's playing good football? And then we have this one stat here that we're going to become hyper-fixated on, which quite frankly, there's a lot of stuff with his turnovers that's out of his hands. He's had a couple of times where he can't see the guy coming in and he gets the ball knocked out of his hands because of pressure. He's had a couple of interceptions that have gone off helmets, tip pass, which I would say, again, going back to it, that's the nature of the beast of what you're going to get in a West Coast offense, where there is a lot of short passing mixed in with some of the deep shots we're taking into this. You're going to get hands up. You're going to get bodies jumping to try to get into passing lanes to knock that stuff down. So it's not a worry to me here, Brendan. I hear it from the fan base on this, but I think that it's just one where we're becoming a little too fixated and getting lost on this one from what is one of the better quarterback seasons that we've seen in Seahawks history.
Right. And our previous franchise quarterback is one of the all-time great quarterbacks in NFL history at avoiding turnovers. I believe his interception ratio percentage is for the Seattle part of his career was somewhere around 6th or 7th best in NFL history. And you know how many times we had a top 3 scoring offense with him at quarterback? 0. Never. Yeah.
And that's because you have two different quarterbacks that operate completely different, right? Where Russ, and part of this was Russ being influenced by Carroll. And this is Carroll, of course, in his brain and on his mind on this, but Carroll was hyper fixated on turnovers, right? He was a guy that I do not want turnovers. Don't do it. We got to avoid it. So he would instruct his quarterbacks to not necessarily throw with anticipation. That very thing that Darnold does great, we would not ask our receivers to do. Russell would like to wait for guys to break open, see them open, and then he would throw it. That was kind of his style. And then it was, again, influenced by Coach Carroll on it. But like you said, great point. What would we always see from those offenses? A lot of inconsistency, a lot of, well, we'll go through 2.5 quarters and do nothing, and suddenly we come alive halfway into the third quarter a little bit. What do we see with this offense? Able to score right out the jump, able to put opening touchdown drives together, able to have moments like this last week where we don't punt until there's 10 minutes to go in the third quarter for the first time. You get those kind of benefits on the back of an offense that stylistically runs this way versus the opposite.
Yeah, and it maybe it means we're a little more high variance, but embrace the roller coaster a little bit, right? I mean, it can result in great things. You can win a Super Bowl turning the ball over a bunch. You really can.
Mm-hmm. As long as you're explosive offensively, as long as you can still put consistent drives together around that, you absolutely can.
Mm-hmm. So I think we're both on a similar page here. I think that is something that people need to kind of learn how to live with, and also understand that it's really not that big of a deal. Like it really isn't. Like look at Josh Allen. Josh Allen was leading the league in turnovers for quarterbacks pretty much every year until last year. Did anybody think Josh Allen was a bad quarterback until last year? I don't think so.
Yeah, agreed. It's good. Another good point. I think we've got a lot of statistical points we can look to on this, to where we go, look, this isn't. Let's not just look at Sam in this. Let's look at the big picture of this throughout the NFL on it. And interceptions aren't good in themselves, and you want to look at them, but there's so many good things to the side of it, that you can't let that wash out this one bad.
Right. Okay. So I can't really think of too much else from that Titans game. It was just kind of a show up, put up your 30 points, have the game be over with. There wasn't much to it. Game ended up looking a lot closer than it was because of the punt return touchdown. If not for that, this is probably a game that we sleepwalk in the fourth quarter through. A little bit of drama at the end because of it, but I can't think of too much else to say.
No, and even the punt return, there was a block in the back and a hold on the play. So
Yeah,
it was.
I saw the hold. It was on Kendrick, right?
The block in the back was on. It might have been Kendrick. Yes, the hold was on Kendrick, and then the uptake man on the right side gets blocked in the back. The initial guy coming up there gets pushed right in the back, right in the open there in front of the official.
Yeah, that set me off because they were calling it tight the whole game. Like there were so many flags the whole game, and then they decided to swallow it there. That I was not happy.
And from an official standpoint, that's when you get flags. When the punt returner reverses field and the blocks go from, I'm sealing the block here because my guy's going behind my back, to the guy's going behind your back. Now I want to hold on to that. I don't want to release that because I have no way to block you. You've got the leverage away from you when he tries to sprint away that other side of the field. So another place where officials, you go, why didn't you see that exactly? It was blatant, happened twice on the play, and this is what happens when you get a punt returner reversing field like that.
Mm-hmm. But pretty typical stuff. I think we both thought that it might be a blowout, and in our defense, there was a point in the game where it was 30-10, which is very close to the scores that we had. And then Tennessee put up some points at the end, which I was never worried we were going to lose that game. I'll put it to you that way.
I never really got to that stage of it either. You got the game in control, and you weren't able to fully put them away. But I mean, you basically had them in control throughout this game.
Yeah, in the modern NFL, if you get to a point where you need to recover an onside kick to win, the game's basically over. It's almost impossible to recover those things now.
Another game ending in victory formation, man. That's the example of you had it pretty comfortably.
Right. So real quick, we did have a little bit of stuff happen during the week. You mentioned the Quandre Diggs signing. Just a couple of hours ago, it was announced the Seahawks signed Cam Akers, the running back formerly of the Rams and of the Vikings. Maybe he's here to give us their playbook. But it's also might mean that George Halani is out for at least some time, and we need a third running back. Akers completely shredded his knee a few years ago. Took a long time for him to get back. I don't think he ever really did get back all the way, but he's still in the league at least.
Yeah, I mean, he's not been given a lot of run, but you do look recent history here. I know absent this year, he hasn't really had any run, and he was stacked up on the depth chart with Minnesota because they had signed Jordan Mason this offseason, and they already had Aaron Jones. So there was just not, if those two guys were healthy, you weren't going to get any touches. But he was okay. 2024, he was averaging 4.3 yards per carry. So he's had some low end ones too as well. That Achilles is a tough one, man. Some guys don't always come all the way back. And he looked great for that playoff run they had, the Rams, when he did bounce back. He looked like he'd been almost like he was able to come back initially, like you'd seen him, but it didn't seem like he was able to sustain that, Brendan. And he's got to make sense though. He's a pro. He's been around the block. He'll be able to pick up this playbook really quickly. And you're hoping you're not having to utilize him a whole lot with your 1-2 running back punches you have it set up.
Right. Again, I think Helani's probably going to miss some time, and it's too bad. Helani was doing some nice stuff. I appreciated what he was doing, but not a loss that should really affect much of anything with this team.
No, I think you're able to sustain this one. Okay.
Yeah, and kind of exciting news here, or at the very least, it's interesting. Riley Mills has had his practice window opened. He's got 21 days to be activated, or else he reverts to IR for the rest of the year. I personally don't think there's a lot for him to do on this team right now. It's if he was active right now, it'd be great because we don't have Jaron Reed. But by the time Riley Mills is ready to play, Jaron Reed's probably going to be back. So I don't really see much from him this year, but he can practice now. So maybe he gets on the field. We'll see.
I think you're going to kind of keep an eye on things with this as far as your health situation goes. If a Leonard or a Byron Murphy had an issue here, I think you have this kind of locked in where he's ready to go to be loaded in there and thrown out there if you need to call upon him. But absent that, if you maintain your health and with Jaron Reed, as you said, comes back, I think that you'll probably end up punting this one. And the real key here on this one is that you can get another year of eligibility with him as far as on this roster. You don't lose one rookie year because when they're injured all year like that, you get it, then push out their free agent year that 1 year farther. Is it worthwhile to do that for a collection of a couple of games? I can't see how the team would think so.
Yeah, that's what we did with Darrell Taylor. I remember he was restricted that last year instead of unrestricted because he missed his entire rookie year.
Yeah, I think that this is the ideal here, unless if you get the injury, that changes things. But if you can keep this health, Jaron's due to come back here soon. I think you just you roll with what you got on this one and call it in, unless they're seeing some monstrous like performance on the practice field from him or something.
Yeah, which would surprise me given I like Riley Mills well enough, but I don't know if you've seen the chart that got posted the other day, but we are getting such a high level of play from Big Cat and Murphy. It can't be beneficial to take those guys off the field.
I can't see it. And he's not going to be a nose tackle. He's a 3-tech, Brendan.
Oh, yeah.
And again, a guy that transitioned recently to 3-tech in college. So he's not a refined, polished 3-tech here. This is a guy that's going to be already raw as the day is long. And that does mean he's going to take probably a little time to develop.
Yeah, I would be inclined to agree with that. I'm kind of looking at him as a guy to kind of come in after Jaron Reed's gone, which is probably after next year. I'm not even really thinking about him that much for next year because, again, where are the snaps going to come from? You got Murphy, you got Big Cat, you got Reed. It doesn't fit together.
I agree with you. I think I'd bring all three guys back and bring Riley within the mix of that, and then he just gets his snaps where he gets his snaps at that point. And I have no issue doing that because we know we've been very beneficial. We've benefited highly from the health of how Leonard's done, and Byron Murphy's been able to be pretty healthy here through his first 2 years, but. Jaron next year is going to be another year older, and he's already gotten injuries this year. So, you're likely to probably next year lose one of the guys and then call upon him. But have the 4. Don't do what some teams do where they'll have the 3. They lose 1, and then they just got the 2. And then if anything happens to the 2, they're pulling their pockets inside out, Brendan, going, we don't got anything else. And in the NFL, you should try to build your depth as much as you can legitimately, not just build your depth with names, but guys that you go, hey, that's a guy that we had as a top 50 grade now that can be inserted in the lineup the second that we lose Jaron Reed.
Right. And in fairness, I do think we're kind of in that spot right now where we have our top 3 on the defensive line. And like, who is the number 4? Is it Mike Morris? Is it Quentin Bohanna? It's not great behind those 3. So I would like to have more depth, but I don't think Mills is going to go out there and be better than what Mike Morris or Brandon Peely can give you.
I don't think so either, especially rookie, especially coming off the ACL injury like he was. So it's just all the more reason with that reinforcement of depth that you have in there that there's not many snaps to be had. The guys in there might be a little bit better with where they're at, with Morris being now here in this league for a couple of years and a chance to develop. And he's not going to be able to nose tackle it. Some people have mentioned me, well, Riley Mills, he's not a nose tackle, folks.
Right.
This guy is a pure 3-tech, pure.
Yeah, that is he needs about 30 pounds to be a nose tackle, maybe, I would say. And
Yeah.
even then,
I
weight's not everything.
I don't think he could even. He's already thrown on 30 pounds to transition from defensive end to defensive tackle. I don't think you could throw
Hmm.
another 15 pounds on him. I mean, that's partly, I think, how he tore his ACL in the first place is that extra weight that he was adding onto that body that year.
All right, so I think that's about it for this week of news. So you want to just go ahead and flip things forward to the Minnesota Vikings?
Let's do it.
All right, so I had a lot of things I was planning to say in this show, but it looks like some of it's going to have to get thrown out here because we're not getting JJ McCarthy, nor are we getting nine either. We are getting not even Carson Wentz. It looks like we are down to the third string quarterback in Minnesota, fourth string if you count JJ McCarthy, and nine as being two different entities, which I like to pretend that they are. We are down to Max Brosmer, undrafted rookie free agent from Minnesota. Only had one real year of experience in Minnesota, by the way. He's played a little bit this year. He played in the preseason, but how are we going to get ready for Max Brosmer this weekend? Because the early word is that McCarthy is not going to be ready to go. So it looks like this is our guy.
Don't know exactly what we're going to get in him. Watching some of his preseason tape today a little bit before the show to try to get a little bit of an idea of him. He's got a very quick trigger. Ball gets up and out. There's not really a lot of wind up to what he does. He had some pretty good performance in preseason, I would say. It wasn't spectacular, but he made some really good throws where he did throw with anticipation and he fit some tight throws into some small windows. So, you may have a little bit of something here with him on that, but it's a rookie and starting his first start here, undrafted. As we often learn with these guys, there's a reason they go undrafted. And you never know because there's always we just don't know. Never, guy might be feeling it in the mode and like, hey, I'm getting my chance. Let's go with it. But I think all things considered, you're going to be playing him at home. Mike McDonald last week had a rookie quarterback, and he did what you should do to rookie quarterbacks. It used to be what drove us crazy at times back to Carol Ayers, where he wouldn't, dial up the heat and make things uncomfortable for him at the line of scrimmage. And when he has to look at pre-snap wise to make an evaluation of who is coming, who isn't coming, where do I got to go to here, and then flipping the script on him post snap over and over and over again. I would look to do that this week. And I think Max is going to be in for a really long day against this Mike McDonald defense.
Yeah, that is the main thing to come back to here. I know that there are still Seattle fans out there that have PTSD with these backup quarterbacks, but it's a new era, and that kind of stuff really should not be happening. I will say there isn't exactly a lot of tape on him. I will admit that. So that could be an element at play here. I think that even if you want to go back to his college tape, there's not that much of it because he was only really a 1 year starter over there. But
he's at New Hampshire for a couple of years too.
Yeah, that barely even feels like football though at that point.
That's true.
Yeah, are you sure it wasn't like lacrosse or something, and then they just like said it was football?
He was a two-sport athlete. It was lacrosse, golf, and three-sport actually. A little bit of football in there mixed in.
But I did actually scout him a little bit last year for the draft. He gets the ball out pretty quickly. He's got a slightly better arm than you would expect, I think, given the fact that he's not that big. He seems like he's pretty good at reading coverages, and I like the way he goes through his reads. There are some like pro quarterback aspects there. But his arm is certainly not great. I don't even know if it's good. It's just okay. Not really mobile, panics under pressure, accuracy comes and goes, doesn't throw well on the move, doesn't throw well under pressure, none of that. So if you do what you've been doing all year and you get a lot of pressure on this quarterback, I don't think there's a lot that he can do. I guess the question is, how much worse can you be from what JJ McCarthy had been giving you? Because I mean, we're excited to play against Max Brosmer, I think, but let's face it, we were pretty excited to play JJ McCarthy as well, based on what we had seen. So, what do you think McCarthy brings that Brosmer's not going to be able to bring?
He's got mobility and a stronger arm, though I think McCarthy's arm has been overstated and was especially overstated around draft season as far as how strong it really was. So that he is a more talented player. There's a reason you have one guy taking the top 10 versus this other guy who is undrafted. But to your point with where McCarthy was playing, and look, if folks, if you've been following us around draft season, this is why you want to follow us to draft season, because we'll give you the goods on guys, and we're going to tend to be pretty right on this stuff down the line. Not right every time, but right quite a bit. And we've been pretty good on our hit rate with quarterbacks. I don't think, Brendan, you were very big on McCarthy either, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I had him as a third rounder. I
Yeah.
didn't really get it. I just kept asking the question, if Spencer Rattler was on that Michigan team instead of McCarthy, would they have still won the national championship? And I think the answer is yes. And then I was like, well, what if you put JJ McCarthy on the South Carolina team that Spencer Rattler was on? They win like 3 games, and he probably gets hurt by game 5.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I think it would play out that exact way if you were to switch those guys up in that manner. He was one of those quarterbacks, and we've been through this process enough to see these guys get artificially elevated. I think we're going to see 2 more quarterbacks in this next draft that's going to have the same thing going on with them, and you just don't want to be the team to do that. Don't get caught up in post season hype. It all starts to where their stock starts to elevate the further we get away from the season. It's like, don't forget the season. Stay locked into what you saw from the year. Keep remembering that game against Penn State where they had him throw like 6-7 times because they were trying to obviously protect him from himself a little bit with that. Yeah, you're running the ball decently, but you're also scared of that Penn State defense and that he's not going to be able to throw into it. You don't have a quarterback throw 7 times unless, especially college football, unless you're trying to protect your quarterback. And I'm not trying to go draft a guy top 10 if I got to protect him in college football.
Yeah, that will always be one of the more bizarre ones to me. It's not the first time we've seen a quarterback just suddenly get elevated at the very end of the evaluation process for reasons that don't make a lot of sense. Like, I remember Ryan Tannehill, but Ryan Tannehill tested insanely good. It kind of made sense in a weird way that happened.
It did too, because he was a wide receiver through Texas A&M's first couple of years there.
Right.
So
I remember.
you didn't have as much quarterback to go off of, but you're like, he's making the transition. I can think that this is going to continue to get better with time and that he can refine some of what he's done. Whereas with JJ, he had been a multi-year starter. He's always been a quarterback. You had already kind of gotten not close to a finished product because he is a young kid, but that, he is largely what he is.
Yeah, and I remember Jay Cutler. That was the big one when I was a little kid. Jay Cutler kind of boosting his draft stock out of nowhere to go in the top 15, but he had the ridiculously good arm. So that kind of made sense too. McCarthy one, I have a hard time understanding that one. That one was a little bit beyond my comprehension. And I do agree with you that there is this kind of natural reaction you have as a football fan to go, well, Brosmer cannot be worse than McCarthy. But that NFL arm thing that you were talking about, that weighs heavy. Like the ability to at least threaten that, hey, I might be able to go down the field here. I might be able to go take the top off versus a guy like Brosmer who can't. He just doesn't have the arm for it.
Yeah, there's certain throws that you just don't worry about with him because you go, I just don't think he can make that throw across way over here on this side. So you take away the stuff that he does want to do, with it. It's part of why I always say arm strength and processing are my 1-2 punch of things that I'm looking for with a quarterback prospect, because if you don't have either of the two, or you're missing either of the two, you really do feel that from that quarterback on that field, snap in and snap out, throw in and throw out.
Yep. So yeah, very limited quarterback. I like his brain, but the flesh is weak. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak.
I think your scouting report hits it right on exactly to what I saw, by the way, in the preseason stuff that I checked out here before the show, where it's that quick release, like you mentioned in your scouting report. Processing, I did see him on preseason going through a couple of reads despite being a rookie quarterback. So he did do a little bit of that on the preseason tape. And he's decisive with the football. He's not going to probably spend a lot of time sitting back there patty caking the ball, partly because he's not a mobile guy, so he can't afford to do that type of stuff. But he's going to see it and let it rip.
So it could be a little like that Saints game we played earlier this year, where you had Spencer Rattler getting the ball out very quickly, and Seattle's defense did fine in that game. Although Rattler didn't play the worst game ever, I
No.
do think we're probably going to see something like that this week.
Yeah, I would imagine short passing attack, heavy amount of running from the Vikings, testing our light fronts, our light boxes. I would imagine you're going to get a lot of that. They don't tend to be a super hyper running team, but you got to have to feel like O'Connell's going to maybe switch that a little bit this week with the rookie quarterback starting.
Hmm. And speaking about the rest of that Vikings offense, let's let me switch over here to the. You put this together throughout the week. You want to talk through what you got here on these Vikings offensive guys, keeping in mind a lot of this stuff may not really be applicable because it's Max Brosmer, but it's all we got.
It's all we got, man. It's all we got. So I think that this does tell you a pretty clear tale here, Brendan, about where Seattle's going to be able to have some inroads on this. The pressure rate for the Vikings is 23rd in the NFL right now. So and that's on the bad side of it. What you do track on this, though, is that you notice they're 22nd in having a low blitz rate against them. So high pressure, low blitz rate. Why are you able to get that done then? Front four is getting it done. This is benefits from Seattle, right? Because we tend to like to run the front four. So that's in our favor. But of course, too, it's also McCarthy there and Carson Wentz before him, 26th with time to throw at 2.9 seconds. So in the bottom of the barrel as far as holding onto the ball a long period of time. Another thing that does not set up well for the Seahawks defense, because the Seahawks defense generates a lot of pressure, but they tend to take a little bit of time to generate it. So if you're a guy that holds the ball a long period of time in the pocket from a quarterback position, that's not going to work out well. Like you said, though, some of this maybe you have to toss out because with a guy like Brosmer, he might be more really putting it at the forefront this week. The coach is hammering into his head, get the ball out, get the ball out, get the ball out, cannot hold on to the ball. 15th in average target separation with Jordan Addison and what's the other guy? I'm spacing his name.
Jay Jettis.
Jay Jettis, Justin Jefferson. So they're not, it's incredible separation, especially Hawkinson in there as well, middle of the road. 9th in play action. This is going to be a big key in this game where I think they're going to attack our light boxes and then they're going to do a lot of play action stuff off the back of that. And that's going to be a challenge for us, especially if we do struggle at all to stop that run game from the Vikings. 27th in yak. So they're not giving you a lot after the catch. This is another thing that fits well to our defense, which at times we've had some issues with tackling after the catch and allowing catches to be extended. So them not being particularly good at it, it works in our favor pretty well. Base light box at the 25th highest rate in the NFL. What do we like to do, Brendan? Light boxes. So This is what teams are doing. They're finding success, leans right into what we like to do. 28th in stack box rate low. So teams are not blitzing and they're not stacking the box to generate the pressure against this Minnesota Vikings team. 53% of the runs are to the outside, and that's the 11th highest. They're having issues with some of their players setting the edge consistently. The linebacker play, they've had to sit down Ivan Pace, the kid that actually had a pretty good year for them last year due to tackling, due to how he's playing as a run defender, how he is in coverage at times. So you're going to see again back to how fits well to us as far as being able to defend. I think the outside run where we're more vulnerable is to the inside, where you have the two outside edges and you have the two inside linebackers and you have the 6-man box. If you're coming downhill into the A and the B gap, that's where we're susceptible. If you're going to try to take it to the outside, that's where we're going to be able to bring those bodies back up and keep the gap integrity, and the help can arrive then, essentially is what I'm trying to say, Brendan. So pretty well as the designs of this Vikings offense works, it goes pretty well like a lock into a key a little bit for a Seahawks defense from my perspective. What's your take?
Yeah, and a big piece of this is what they've been dealing with on the offensive line this year, right? Because they had a good offensive line last year. It took a hit when Darisaw got injured. And they really tried to build it out this offseason, right? They signed Will Fries, they signed Ryan Kelly, and they drafted Donovan Jackson. And Darisaw's gotten hurt again. I don't think he's going to play this week. We'll see. But it doesn't seem like he's going to play. Donovan Jackson's hurt. Doesn't seem like he's going to play either. I think Ryan Kelly just got back from injury a couple of weeks ago. And I think Will Fries has missed some games this year as well. I'm not sure about that one. Don't quote me on that. But they have been incredibly beat up front, and it has been about as bad as it was at the end of the year for the Vikings in 2024. So that's been a big part of them not being able to do the things that they typically do. But it's kind of almost in many ways a bland offense. There's which is very surprising for a Kevin O'Connell offense, but it feels very bland to me.
Yeah, it doesn't feel dynamic. It doesn't feel explosive. It doesn't feel dangerous. And it has felt like that under O'Connell. To your point, at times, it is an injury. You point out that's really the base here. They do have the talent. It is a capable crew. Clark coming back now. He's been solid for them since coming back from the concussion. Freeze has played good for them when the injuries haven't popped up there for him. So, even Donovan Jackson when he's been there has been good and solid for them. They can't keep them all healthy at the same time. I think they've had like 2 series with all of them healthy this year or something like that. And
Mhm.
it's going to probably play another factor in this game again, which you never like to see from a Minnesota fan perspective because you're already rocking Brosmer out there.
Yeah, it's I think Addison's regressed as well. He doesn't seem like he's uh, I don't know, it doesn't seem like he's the guy that it looked like he was going to be after the last couple of years. He seems pretty just kind of okay to me.
A little bit. I think some of this is the quarterback play holding back that offense so heavily and pass protection with it, and that the receivers are the ones who kind of pay the price on that to the back end of this. And I, I, I'm not sure. You might be right on that. I'm not sure just because those other factors at the front of this that are definitely skewing this a little bit.
Right. So, what else is there really to say? They don't run the ball very well this year, I've noticed. Aaron Jones has not been that effective. Hawkinson doesn't seem like he's what he used to be either. I think that injury he had, I want to say last year, apparently I read somewhere it's something that might kind of derail his whole career.
Jeez.
So that could be really unfortunate because he's people forget how talented he is. He was a top 10 overall pick, I think, right?
Yeah, no, or he was, if he's not top 10, he was right in that area of a very highly selected tight end and where it was taken at. And
Hmm.
I'll tell you, Brendan, I think that one of those golden rule of thumbs that we should apply as an organization to the draft that I'm a big in favor of is at this point, I don't know if it's ever smart to take a tight end in the first round with the miss rate of those guys that get taken in there and versus the hit rate that you see in the second round at times with some of the success stories that we've had in the second round tight ends. I just don't know if it's smart to do so. I think you end up getting caught up with some of these like physical measurable stuff with these guys. Like all of them, it seems like when you backtrack, it's like they all got the wonderful physical measurables that end up blowing you away, but it almost gets you lost in the fact that maybe they're not a particularly great football player, when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I think we got
But
to
again, with
like,
Hawkinson, maybe some of this is injury too.
yeah, I think it's the injury thing really because apparently the thing he had to deal with, I think it was last year, is something that could affect his entire life. Like it's never going to totally go away. It's kind of like I think Joe Namath had the knee injury in Alabama, and he just had to get
Hmm.
shots for it for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there are a lot of Alabama fans that claim that Namath would have been the greatest of all time if not for the knee. Like they think he would have been what Johnny Unitas was.
Yeah, he shredded his knee. So and that was before they could do the ACL repairs. They just basically like put some ice on it and get back out there kind of thing. And then you keep playing on it and then you don't have it ever heal. And then it gets worse and worse and worse. Marino kind of had the same sort of thing with his lower legs. You watch Marino, like when he first walks into the lower legs, kind of thin. By the end, those things were tree trunks by the end of his career, with like 15 different pieces of equipment coming off the knee and
Yeah.
it was pretty next level. But yeah,
Hmm.
it's tough, man.
How would you defend Jefferson in this game? Would you have Woolen follow him, or would you just live with whatever happens naturally?
No, I would probably run this pretty straight up defensively where, I tend to have one guy on one side of the field, another guy, Witherspoon over, and I think it's Witherspoon to the right side of the field, Woolen over to the left side is how you've tended to run this. And what I would do as a defense is I would run a lot of stack boxes and simulated pressures, but I would probably peel out of that a little bit of the actual blitzing. I'd blitz early on like we did last week and then kind of dial it back as the game goes along, but stay committed to the stack boxes and then just keep falling back into cover two. It doesn't have to be cover two with the two safeties. As we've seen with Seattle, it can sometimes be cover two with one of the safeties and one of the corners becomes the cover two guy. But every time you're getting the help up over the top and kind of removing that at the same point in time, selectively take some risks in this game and getting after Brosmer. And because you don't feel like his arm can attack, maybe Jefferson get open deep. Doesn't mean Brosmer can hit it deep if he
Hmm.
does. And same thing with Addison. And I think I'd like to see the challenge of, it's like a shooter in basketball where you're not sure if he can actually shoot. You stand off of him a couple steps and you're like, take a shot. Let's see if you can hit it.
Yeah.
Let me see if you can hit it if we're dialing up a little bit of pressure in this game. I think offensively we'll get our share of points. Offensively we'll move the ball. So we can have a little bit of room for error in this one in that way, I think. You don't have to go crazy town with it, but it showed last week that you take these rookies and you throw all that heat up at the line of scrimmage and you give them all that stuff to process prior to the snap. You've got their heads swirling post snap.
Yeah, I like it. I don't think we need to go crazy here. I don't think there's any reason why. Don't need to put more stuff on film for other teams. So just play it normal and see if Brosmer can even make NFL throws. Maybe he can't. I mean, we do see guys who cannot make NFL throws sneak into the NFL every now and then, and maybe Brosmer will end up being like that.
Minnesota fans are saying they want to get a look at him. They've got some optimism for him. I think some of that's born out of the fact that he played for Minnesota last year in college, where that's always going to endear you to the local fans a little bit. But we'll see what we get with him, man. I do think that you're going to be able to take it to them and that this matchup works really heavily in their favor with offensively where the Vikings are at right now, despite all the talent that they have on that team.
Let's see here. We got a couple donos here. Jeffrey Thistle, thank you for the $5. It's not just Sam. The entire team needs to prove they can beat contenders. Not convinced we can beat the Niners or Rams down the stretch. Well, we will get to find out with those two teams specifically, so that's kind of nice. But what I would say... Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Okay. What I would say is that in some previous years, when we would play these contenders, we would get blown out. That has not been the case this year. So I don't feel a sense of dread when it comes to playing these teams like I might have a couple years ago. So I understand that we haven't beaten a contender yet, but I'm not concerned that it's something that we just cannot do.
Almost swallowed there. I share your outlook on this. Jeffrey, I get where you're coming from as well. I think it's a valid criticism of the team to take a look at. The strength of schedule for the Seattle Seahawks up until this point this year has been the second easiest schedule in the NFL behind just the New England Patriots. The future strength of schedule for the remaining portion of this year puts the Seattle Seahawks at 29th easiest, or the third hardest remaining strength of schedule. So to your point, Jeffrey, we're going to learn about this team on whether or not they can take these teams down this home stretch. And it's on them to make this. In a lot of ways, you're going to have to probably prove this just to get in the playoffs. You're going to have to take one or two of these guys just to get into the playoffs. So we'll learn the answer to this question. They have not necessarily beat these teams. Back to Brendan's point on this, you've lost these 3 games by a collective, 7 points? In all 3 of those games you've been in down the line, all those games you've come very close to taking the win. So I have more confidence than ever before, like Brendan. I think this team's going to prove that they're ready to take this step this year, and we're going to get a couple of these wins down the stretch. Maybe it's only a Niner and a Colts, and you still are not able to topple the Rams, but that they will have taken down a couple of teams that had really good records. We have already so far even this year, but just further, be able to kind of quiet those questions that are, I think, valid questions, Jeffrey.
And either way, when we get to the playoffs, and it does look like we are going to be a playoff team, you're going to have to play those teams. You're going to have to play good teams in the playoffs. Like, I don't think a bad team is getting in the playoffs this year in the NFC. Maybe you don't believe in the Bears, I guess, and they would get in because they could win that division. But I think the Bears are good at this point.
They're fine. They're good. It's kind of an open division this year out there, and there's been some inconsistency with some of the teams we thought were going to be the, blue bloods of that division.
Right. We also got this from Jeffrey. Thank you for the $5 again. All my opinions are on hold until we face the next postseason contender. Half the Niner team on IR. If we lose again, I'm going to lose my mind. They're very annoying, man. They're very annoying, those Niners. Half the team on IR, and Robert Saleh is really, really good, man. I don't know what else to say.
He should probably he's probably one of the guys at the top of the list to get another head coaching job this offseason. I mean, I don't know how he can't, especially as bad as the Jets are being run. So I get it, man. Jeffrey, I totally get where you're coming from on this. This has been the part that's been missed the last couple of years and still been somewhat missing this year. Your hallmark victories this season are Jacksonville Jaguars and the Pittsburgh Steelers, essentially. Or in Houston Texans, I guess, would be one of your other 3. And like, those are solid wins, but it's still not, none of those teams are a contender.
Right. So we got the Niners in week 18, right? Last game of the year.
On the road.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about that one, but we'll see what the situation is for that game. Like, what if the Niners already have their seating locked up? Like, if they're already stuck in the wild card. Like they may not even really take that game all that seriously. We'll have to see.
Well, to your point, if you're already that injured, you're definitely resting what you got remaining, right? Like if it's a game that don't matter at that point. And they lost Brandon Ayuk in that situation this last week, which was always to me a little bit of a worry that maybe that guy comes back in and reinforces those ranks, because Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, and Brandon Ayuk healthy makes that receiving core look a little bit differently than what it's looking like this year so far. So he's out on this now. I think when it comes down to it, two guys that have really harassed us and given us hell, Fred Warner and Bosa, both of those two guys being out. When Bosa went out halfway in the game last year on the road against the Niners, we were able to really get the offense going. When Fred Warner was out this year for that one drive against the Niners, that was our one scoring drive in that game.
Yeah.
I think that we're going to be able to really exploit that.
Yeah, you should be able to, for sure. So we got a little bit of interesting football NFL breaking news here. Not Seahawks related, but can you give me a drop real quick? Give me a breaking news drop real quick.
Let me see if I got one here. Hold on. I don't think I got one on my deal. I got to do
the yeah, that's what I meant, man. Police Academy style.
Oh, there we go. There we go. I got to get that freaking on my drop, man.
All right. Frank Ragnow is coming out of retirement for the Lions home stretch run.
Wow. Okay.
That is out of left field.
Yeah, that is out of left field. So, cool. You always wonder why more players maybe don't do this, where you can avoid all of training camp and through most of the rigors of the year and get yourself in shape, come in for the home stretch, especially a guy like him who's has body beat up so much, so often. It's good for the Lions, man. It's a big boon for them.
Yeah, that might actually flip things a little bit in that division, because they're only behind Green Bay by half a game. Like that could tilt things. That's big.
Absolutely.
He was, I think, the second best center in football last year.
Yeah, when he's out on the football field, he's top end, top notch. So it's hurt them this year losing him, no doubt about it. They've been able to find some footing here and there, but that was a big loss for them this offseason.
Yeah, and if I was a football player, I think I'd do that a lot. Like I'd retire and then just come out of retirement with a month left in the season, like 5 years in a row. I'm surprised more players don't do that. You're right. Like people have been talking a little bit about maybe Aaron Donald doing it, which is absolutely terrifying. But like, why wouldn't you do that? Like that makes sense, right? Maybe your body can't hold up the whole season, but it can definitely hold up for 2 months.
Well, yeah, Brandon Graham also do this with the Eagles here recently. So maybe this will be part of a little bit of a newer trend where players are willing to be open to doing this. And if I'm a team, I would definitely be open to it. Hey, I got a guy that I know can give me that help down that stretch run, and why not? What do we got to lose on it? It's not going to cost us a lot of money to do this. It's not any risk. We don't have to trade any draft capital. So maybe we'll see this be more of worth the 17 game season, and players like, I don't want to go through that long ass thing. I'll do the back end. If you guys are okay with that, throw me a couple $1 million and all right, bet, let's do it. So good move, both these teams, and good to Detroit be able to bring him out of retirement like that.
Yeah, that's it's fun. It's fun. I like it. Interesting stuff. And we also got another from Jeffrey. Thank you for the $5. After a decade of bad OL play, I always evaluate offenses from the OL back. Even Mahomes can't play behind a bad OL. The thing about this that is kind of crazy, because I did a video about this earlier this week where Sam Darnold's on pace to get sacked 17 times this year. And that would be by far the best any Seattle team has ever done in terms of sack per or pass attempts per sack. Like even the Walter Jones offensive lines never came close to what we're going to do this year. And it's in 4 out of 5 spots, the same players that we had last year. And it just goes to show you how important the Kubiak factor is here. Like Kubiak, what he's been able to do with, by and large, the same offensive linemen that Grubb and Waldron couldn't really get anything out of in this regard anyway, it really goes to show you how good a job he is doing.
It does. It's a good point on your part, because as well, this is one of those things that's not stat trackable, right? And what I mean by that is, how many times in the game are we probably benefiting offensive line wise from the play action, or everything looks like a run prior to the snap, and then you have a defensive lineman, for instance, having to hold the line first to make sure it's not a run two gap, what he needs to do within that. And then he gets to his pass rush, and then that's a little bit extra late. That's a beat late versus a guy, what we've seen those prior offenses that were like, I know it's pass, and I got my ears pinned all the way back, and I am launching off this line of scrimmage like a bat out of hell. And there's no stat to track that within how an offensive play caller is keeping that defense at bay, with both that on the balance of your play calling, with on how your formations look similar snap after snap, and you make it look the same. This run play looks exactly like this pass play, and you're not going to know the difference, and you're going to have to guess post snap. You don't get to have this built-in feature like those prior offenses had, where you know all day long what's coming. You know when it's run, you know when it's pass. You're seeing indicators all over the place offensively wise. And then the second part of this too is that there's a big part of this, even though they're taking shots down the field and getting those plays, that's happening at times out of max protect. That's not happening out of you spreading everything out and having like bare minimum pass protectors and then Sam out on an island. You're getting in the protection to let those long developing plays set up. You're mixing it in with the short passing attack, which then gets the ball quickly out of the quarterback's hand, which is another thing that I think was missing all too often with the Waldron and Grubb offenses of the prior regime, and that they were just too much of the holding the ball, asking the quarterback to just sit there and patty cake that thing. And our time to throw this year, Brendan, is down probably, I think, a good 0.2, 0.5 versus where it's been in the prior even 3 or 4 years under both of the two last quarterbacks.
And that might not sound like a lot, but it is 0.2 seconds. And it doesn't sound like much, but it really is.
It's significant. It's a significance between this having 40 sacks on a year and ending up with 20 sacks on the year, quite frankly, to a degree. I mean, some of this is the other stuff I just talked about too, Brendan, but it's all of that. And to your point, this is the benefit of having a capable NFL ready-made offensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm. Right. And let's see, we got one more super chat here. Kraken Smack, thank you for the $2. Cam Akers to Seattle, I heard, should be good. Well, hopefully he doesn't have to play, to be perfectly honest. Like, hopefully he gets on the field maybe twice the whole game. Like, that would be preferable, honestly.
Yeah, he's a vet crack. He's a guy that had some tremendous quickness coming out of, I think it was Florida State. Just really nice feet. Coming out of Florida State, there was a lot of sort of that Dalvin Cook, James Cook kind of pace to his running style. I think he's had to become more of a little bit of a grinder since the Achilles injury, and a little bit more of I'm going to fight and scratch a little bit to get what yards I can get. Not quite the same level of quickness he once had, but a functional player who should be able to come in and get acclimated in the offense really fast. And if you do have to call upon him, should be able to execute.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But probably do a little bit on special teams. I think that's how Halani got hurt, right? He was on special teams, if I recall.
I think so. Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay. So I believe that is it for the donation. So let's try to do a little bit of a sleeper discussion. You ready for that?
Let's do it.
Okay. So let me get the overlay up. Let me do this, and let me try to get this screen sharing program to work. Can you tell the people about Sleeper a little bit while I'm working this out?
Absolutely. Sleeper is the number one sports app running in the game. I know you got a lot of choices out there that you can pick from, but in our opinion, this is the best one, and not just because they're sponsoring us. It's because they've got some of the most available type of selections to take in these games. You see a lot of these sites that limit down the selections of the over and under, and a lot of times with picks you don't want to make. Not with Sleeper. They give you a lot of different options to put your ticket together. Me and Brendan like the over and unders, but you can also get into still the weekly fantasy if that's your cup of tea. Daily fantasy, you can mix and match basketball, football going on at the same time here and put a nice little ticket together. Go get yourself some money. And if you use our code, either SBN, as you can see here on the screen right now, or NEST, N-E-S-T, either of our codes, and we're having a code off here, and that will get you up to 100% matched of your first deposit up to $100. But wait, there's more, because if you just create a login, just simply create a login, that will give you a free $20 into your account. So $120 for me and Brendan to you through the Sleeper app, and you also support the channel at the same time. That's a win-win-win. I have been hearing, Brendan, that there is still some limitations in utilizing this in Washington, by the way. I don't know if you're able to roll it there, but if that is the case and you find some still limitations within there, you can always use it on any kind of casino network out there in the state of Washington.
Yep. I've done that before. All right, so let's go to the Seahawks Vikings game here real quick. So I'm going to start us off with, I think, a fairly easy one at this point. JSN, anytime touchdown. He's on a roll. No, nothing's going to stop him. And I know he can
Mm,
smell history. History's right in front of him.
okay. I like it. Let
Mhm.
me bring up mine. I can't quite see it on the thing.
Yeah.
So I gotta bring it.
JSN has a date with destiny.
All right. I'm gonna go with Kenneth Walker over 67.5 yards.
Oh, okay. Let me find that one real quick. Yeah, 67.5 rushing yards for K9. Yeah, the Vikings run defense not been great this year, and we'll talk more about that after this. But they have not been up to standard this year, so I like that.
Okay. What's your
Let's
next
see.
pick?
What else are we gonna do? Oh man, 170 for Max Brosmer. I almost want to go under
Jeez.
on that, but that's so low. I don't think I can.
Yeah, that's a tough one to
Yeah.
go under on.
So I am gonna go with actually. Let's go with Hawkinson over 29.5. A tight end is a young, struggling quarterback's best friend often. So let's do Hawkinson 30 or more.
And I'll finish up the ticket with Sam Darnold at over 232.5. I think Brian Flores is going to blitz the house, set up a lot of audible calls to quick passing, and having you at least early in this game dialing up a little bit more passing off the back of that. And I think he's able to, especially when you blitz. One of the problems with blitzing is you can have the price paid on the back end of doing that. Flores does a good job of covering the back end. We'll talk about in a second here, but I still think Sam gets his yards.
All right, so we got Darnold over 232. We got K9 over 67. We got JSN anytime touchdown. And we got Hawkinson with 30 or more receiving yards. That is 7.1x. So you can go on a $10 entry there, go up to 71. So get on over to Sleeper again. Use the code I'm SBN. He is NEST. Either way, you get a 100% match up to $100. And don't forget about that free $20 as well. So get on over to Sleeper and have some fun with sports this year. All right. So I think that, I think we're good. So let's flip on over to now this Vikings defense where this might be even more depressing than what's happened to their offense because last year Brian Flores was absolutely in his bag. Just his aura was unmatched, off the chain stuff he was coming up with. And that Vikings defense was downright elite. I think they were fourth in scoring. They led the league in interceptions by a mile. They were cooking up all kinds of crazy pressure. And so far this year, they did add on a little bit. They got some new players. They got some good guys. There's some talent there, but they just it hasn't been the same at all. They're actually, I think, second to last in the league in picks. They're not really getting pressure the way they were last year. It's a tough sight. Like, what happened? How did this switch get flipped so quickly?
Well, it's not been anything specific as far as there's a major catastrophe or injury. I think there's just a variety of things going across the board here, Brendan. They moved on from Harrison Phillips in the inside. That's hurt their run game because they've gone to Hargrave. You and I both know from Hargrave's days going back to the Eagles, he made a choice. I'm going to be a pass rusher and I'm not defending the run anymore. I mean, he chose to do that at the Eagles. He continued that with the 49ers. It was not going to change with the Minnesota Vikings. They got Jonathan Allen in there as well. They tried to kind of stack up too many three techs on the inside. That's led to some issues in stopping the run. They can't set the edge. That's led to some issues in stopping the run. The linebacker play has gone downwards. Pace has been exposed a little bit with that. Harrison Smith, who's maybe going to be a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done, is very old on the back end. I don't think that he's playing anywhere near where he used to play. When you look at the numbers on this, Brendan, Vikings are a team that's going to get after you. Teams are passing on the Vikings at the lowest rate of the NFL. This is part of, like I said, the struggles to the run, and the struggles to the run being a variety of things. Linebackers and the front. It ain't just, well, the front's struggling. Well, they don't have a nose tackle. Well, the linebackers can't tackle. It's all of that stuff. They are second in pressure rate, but some of that comes, in my opinion, Brendan, from that being first in blitz rate. Now, it's some guys are still playing pretty good. Greenyard's still playing really well for them. They've got some dynamicism off the edge with Van Geekel as well, and he's a good all-around player who had Defensive Player of the Year. It's not quite having the same year as he did last year. You know, last year he was in the voting for Defensive Player of the Year. He's not in there this year right now, but they are going to blitz you up. They are going to bring it a lot. And what you get with Brian Flores is he's kind of the master of the fire zone blitz. So he's going to bring stack boxes up and do that. You can see that fifth and stack box rate. So they are on the high side and how they utilize that. They then fall away of that, but they fall away of that to tending to be in a 5-man blitz front. So they're not sending 6-7. That's not casino blitzes you're tending to get. It's the 5-man blitz. And like with McDonald, there's a lot of at times trying to then clean up to deep off the back of that. But every defense is then going to choose holes within it from that. Short and intermediate type throws are the ones that, by and large, I think are going to be there for Sam. He's got to recognize the blitz and then throw into the hot route read of the blitz. There was a play that we hit this game. It was kind of look almost like a sub screen where you're out of I formation. You do a fake handoff to Kenneth Walker. Oots goes through the hole and then he breaks out to the right. Walker just breaks out to the right, and you have Walker throwing it out in the flat with Oots out in front of him. But you're having at that point a linebacker blitzing right into Sam Darnold on that play. And Sam's doing just what you tell quarterbacks to do, which is throw right at the blitz, because the guy that's blitzing is vacating the space behind that player. And that's what they did to Walker. Remember, he had that little 20-yard catch and run there on that play. Pretty creative little design there. But those are the kind of plays you're going to be able to hit with the Minnesota Vikings in this game. And Sam's got to be able to identify the blitz. He's got to take his time up at the line of scrimmage, Brendan, and really he gets rushed sometimes where he doesn't let things kind of settle and then recognize it and then make the call and go. He'll get up there and kind of get in a hurry to get to the snap and to be playing with tempo, which I understand. But with this defense, you've got to be careful with that, and you got to be patient going up around the line of scrimmage and see it true. But you're going to blitz that much, no matter, even if it's just a 5-man blitz, you're leaving yourself susceptible onto the back end. Kind of surprising at how much they've stacked the box and still struggled to stop the run, Brendan. That's again going back to, like, if you stack the box that much, you should be able to stop the run pretty well because you have the extra bodies up there. That's though representatory of the fact that those defensive tackles aren't holding the line as well, and the edges aren't getting the job done as well over there. As in addition to that, Dallas Turner, the kid that they took in the first round, still quite struggling to get in there and solidify himself as not just only a starter, but really getting legitimate attempts in there to go at. And you're not getting a lot of light boxes in this game. Teams do attack the Vikings inside, outside in the run game from a pretty equal standpoint on that one. So I do look at this a little bit as similar to how we looked at and I'm interested to see where you stand on this, but when I look at these numbers, I walk away with it on similar to where we saw it to the defense, in that the way that this Vikings defense is structured up against what Darnold does well, what Kubiak does well, what our offense does well, it's kind of a mismatch. Like, I come back to, if I'm thinking about the defense that Darnold doesn't want to face, it's going to be a Rams type defense that's going to run front 4 and drop 7 into coverage. And he's going to have those passing windows squished down, and he's going to have to make kind of a tough decision with not a lot of room to do. And if you've got the front 4 that can generate pretty quick pressure, they don't have to blitz to do so. That's the team I think a Sam Darnold might have some issues with here and there. But a team like this that's going to bring the blitz, that's going to, I think he's pretty well accommodated, and we're pretty well accommodated offensively to be able to deal with that.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're talking about a team that's going to stack the box constantly, that's the kind of defense that Darnold has kind of punished all season, right? Like, these teams stack the box because they don't think JSN's a true number 1 receiver, and they constantly pay for it. The teams that have done well have tended to be the teams that don't stack the box. So you have that, and then you say they don't even stop the run well even with that. It's kind of a Sam Darnold's dream to play a team like this.
It really is. They also do this thing where, because he's so creative with his blitz packages and that 5-man front can kind of be anybody, he does a lot of that spot dropping into space with guys you wouldn't typically think should be spot dropping into space. I mean, the Packers last week were able to target their linebackers in coverage down the field on like wheel routes and stuff on the running backs because they didn't trust them in coverage. They do a lot of like taking their edges and dropping their edges into coverage. So this is like a game where Elijah Arroyo or AJ Barner gets to be mismatched up against an edge out in space, working up the field. Like, Sam's got to identify that and target those mismatches and go after it, because that's where Flores can probably get it. He's a really good defensive coordinator. I love his scheme. I love being blitz heavy. But when you're this extreme to that area of it, and you're this complex, and you're this, it isn't even like McDonald has complexity, but he also builds a lot of safety nets within the complexity of his defense, right? The cover 2, you end up in a lot of times deep, and he's very much still keeping things protective. Flores does a little bit of that, but Flores is willing to kind of walk the razor's edge, I think, a little bit more heartily and a little bit of that sort of Bruce Arians like no risk it, no biscuit approach to the defensive side of the ball. And that's where you can punish them in real specific ways.
Right. I remember last year the Vikings were playing man coverage at like a historically never before seen before rate. And I think it's come down a lot this year. I don't think they do it as much. They still probably do it a lot, but it's not
Mm.
obscene like it was last year where they just lived in man coverage.
And it's if you're going to blitz, that is the coverage type you tend to lean off of the blitz. You can run zone off blitz, but if you're taking a percentage basis, probably like 75% of the time you're running blitz, you're probably running man coverage to the back of that for the most part, or having some man concepts within some zone concepts on the coverage on the play by play. Your linebackers maybe spot drop and your corners are in man or something like that, or your safeties are at the depth, but your corners are in man, something like along those lines.
So another element at play here would just be Byron Murphy. Seems like he's regressed a lot from last year. Last year he I think made the Pro Bowl. He was one of the best corners. This year feels like he's been a lot more anonymous. Not much to really say about him. Just kind of out there playing, not remarkable.
Yeah, he's not been able to match what necessarily did last year. And you saw in that one little stat that was on there, ninth in average separation too. So teams are getting a lot of separation, which you asked about why maybe they're not running as much man is probably because of the amount of separation that they're giving up with some of the corners out there.
So are you feeling another big JSN game this week? Because we're playing for keeps now. If he keeps this up, we're talking about one of the all-time great receiver seasons ever. So do you think he can keep up that pace this week?
Yeah, I do. I don't know if I see him going for 150, but can he go for 120, 130 this week? Yeah, I think he possibly could, or he should be able to, because this defense isn't one that's necessarily built up. If you're not dropping the 7 men in coverage consistently, you're going to have a harder time of rolling double teams to one particular player because you're already kind of down one body with the 5-man fronts. Now you roll a double team over here to this guy, and there's all this space all over the rest of the field for that quarterback to go attack mismatches one-on-ones.
Right. So I don't know. I'm not too afraid of this defense, and I can't believe I'm saying that given what they did last year and how much they were theoretically supposed to be adding on this season, bringing in a guy like a Jonathan Allen, getting what was supposed to be far better play out of Dallas Turner. It hasn't come together at all, and they're I think 18th in scoring, and some of that is because their offense has been so bad, but even if you factor that in, I don't think this defense has been very intimidating at all.
No, it's not putting the clamps on anybody. The teams are finding some headway and room with it. Some of it's a little bit surprising because they didn't necessarily take some huge step back. And look, Jonathan Allen's been a pretty good player for them as an interior pass rusher. He's not necessarily super dominant, but he's been a solid, I think, addition in there for him. And Isaiah Rodgers has played pretty good corner for them as a new kind of guy on the scene there for him. So they've had some injection a little bit. Just maybe they're just not getting the quite same high-end level of play that they've had from Greenyard and Van Ginkel, and Pace gets moved off the lineup because he's struggling with tackling, and even the guy that got out there as a replacement like Eric Wilson, he's been struggling a little bit. So it's just kind of having a collection of guys, and this stuff part about the NFL, I think, Brendan, sometimes like the Vikings are kind of not a cautionary tale, but something for us to always be aware of when we go into whatever happens this year, moving into next year, is that the NFL and why we like to be aggressive at all times is because you never know when things can just suddenly go off the rails without much, explanation, where it's just like, we just had bad luck here and there. And these guys went backwards here. And then this thing happened and that happened. It's like NFL can just be just a heartbreaker of a sport in that way, because the Vikings, I think, made a lot of smart moves this offseason, and even that offensive line that's been beat up, Brendan, has been good when it's been healthy. So it's like conceptually they weren't wrong, they just aren't on the right end of the injury side of it. I think McCarthy's the one decision that's the main bad one that you look at, but they had to do that almost as much as anything.
Right. And I also wonder if part of it is when you have Brian Flores as your play caller on defense, you're inherently going to be high variance, and you have to learn to live with that. Like sometimes it's just going to be much better, but sometimes it's also going to be a lot worse than you expected. And there's not much you can do about it other than just deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah. They're going to remain who they are identity wise, and being hyper pressure based, as pressure based as any team in the NFL. that's where they're going to stay, good, bad, or the other. They're not going to transition in a game and go, well, the blitz ain't working. I guess we got to just go to the 2 high shell and stay with the front four and hope they can get the job done.
A little bit of news from McDonald in the last hour or so concerning some of the injuries. Looks like Julian Love is not expected to return this week, probably next week. So probably no Julian Love, and also same for Eric Saubert. Both guys not expected to practice this week, which means I seriously doubt they play. So I think you can kind of cross them off. They believe that Ernest Jones will practice later this week, but they don't yet know how the knee is going to respond. So it's a little bit of ambiguity there, but that's all we got right now.
Yeah, no
Kyle
shocker.
Okada not going to IR will be day to day, so that's good news too. So we may need Okada for another week, as it turns out.
Yeah, if you're not Noah Okada, I mean, you very likely will get a lot of Quandre Diggs snaps out there, I will say. I'm not saying he'd run, you probably split between him and D'Anthony Bell, but you're going to get some Quandre out there if there is no Ty Okada in this one. So not too surprising. We're still really in as good a situation, I think, as you could ask getting down into the home stretch of the season as far as looking at the injury situation, because everybody's basically going to be back on both sides of the football. And just that you're this deep into the season with that opportunity. I think some of this is being so much comfortably in these football games, being able to run the ball so often and pull these games down. Remember a couple years ago, the stat that we had with the year where the Niners, I think, went to the Super Bowl, where they had played, remember, a game and a half collectively in less snaps than our Seahawks defense had. I think you're going to see the Seahawks defense on the other side of that this year, in seeing that the total number of snaps pulled down, collectively might be a game and a half when it's all said and done. That's a contributing factor to allowing us to be this healthy at the end of the year, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of like the year we won the Super Bowl, where a lot of people got hurt, but pretty much everybody was back for the end of the year. Like, I think KJ Wright got hurt that year, but he was back for the Super Bowl. Percy Harvin, of course, that was kind of the big one. 3 guys on the offensive line missed time that year, and they all were back by the end. The only guy who was injured and done for the year was Sidney Rice. So it's kind of coming together in a very similar way this year. Like, none of these guys are expected to be out for the season.
No, and they're all pretty much due to be returning back very, very soon. It's not like we're waiting for a long period of time. I think Horton's the longest one we're gonna have to wait for here, but everybody comes back into the ranks, and this is a big important part of you making a run at the end of the season. Is playing your best ball, team coming together, everything continuing to improve, but also that you're able to maintain your health. Because just remember back the Niner playoff game a couple of years ago, Jonathan Abrams was out there for you at safety. You had no Kenneth Walker into, I think, that second half. You had an offensive line that was decimated. You had a defense that was beat up all over the place. It's a place you walk in playoffs and you're in the playoffs, but you're spent, shot, nothing left in the tank.
Right. So in fact, have we had a single season ending injury yet this year? I'm thinking about it. I don't think so.
I mean, McIntosh, right? Like,
right.
You've had a couple of those, like I think a low end one here or there, but nothing of anything of major variety.
Right. And even if we had Horton right now, all he'd be doing is running cardio. I don't think he'd get the ball thrown his way, but maybe once every game. Like, there's just not a lot he can do right now.
Yeah, I think that they're being really conservative with him because the Shaheed addition and Bobo coming back and being healthy, and White being able to hold out there and do what he's doing. They're serving roles, even if it's just being run blockers at times as wide receivers. And then you're going, look, if you didn't have those guys, is Horton on the IR? Probably not. He's probably out there playing on this leg. But because you're afforded this depth, the benefit of having the depth too is that you can let guys get fully healthy. You let Julian Love fully get that hamstring all the way cleared out. When you bring him back, he's good to go, and there's no questions. Where other teams who might be going, man, we're desperate. We got to get that guy out there. Then you get him out there, and then out goes the back of the leg, and you didn't give him enough time to get it going. And so they're being very conservative with these injuries, on top of being very in a good place as far as the injuries go.
Yeah, and again, this is one of the big reasons why we did win our Super Bowl 12 years ago. Everybody was back in time for the big games.
That's right.
Dogzilla, thank you for the $2. Brosmer's backup Wolford is a Hawks killer. Yeah, I saw this. So John Wolford is probably the backup quarterback on Sunday because Wentz and McCarthy are both out.
We got him twice. We got him twice, dog. We got him. We got him at home. We beat him at home. One of the few
Hmm.
times we taken down McVay when he was starting that one game, and then we got him. We knocked him out of the playoff game when he was starting for him.
Yeah, but
Of
the
course, we
Rams.
probably shouldn't have knocked him out of the playoff game because then would have gotten to play him instead of Goff in that game.
Yeah, I was really excited when that happened because everyone was saying, "Oh, Goff's thumb doesn't work," and I was like, "There's no way we're losing at home to a quarterback that has a thumb that doesn't work, right? Like, give me a break."
Goff pulled in a hell of a tough performance that day coming off the bench, man. We also
Yeah,
kind of gave it to him with some of what we did with our process too, but um, he
yeah,
definitely he definitely came in there and balled out.
yeah. And I remember the next week the Rams played the Packers, and the Rams lost. But Goff actually, according to the advanced stats, played the best game of his career in terms
Mm.
of making like tight window throws. And that ended up being the last game of his Rams career because he got traded that offseason. I always thought that's kind of cold. The guy plays an incredible game in Lambeau Field where it's freezing cold, his thumb doesn't work, and he's throwing fireballs. And then that's the last game he plays for you before you trade him. I was always like, man, that's got to hurt.
That relationship went sideways really quickly between him and McVay made that determination of not good enough. One can only wonder what it was or where he determined that to be. Was it the Patriots Super Bowl, for instance, where he was like, "My quarterback's holding us back"? I don't know, but it definitely he went when he made that determination. It's part of what makes McVay a great coach is that when he makes a decision on something, he's not taking a long time to get there. They make it, they go, they stay aggressive, and as I always say in the NFL, aggression tends to be rewarded.
Hmm. All right. So I don't think there's anything really left to talk about with regards to this game. We talked about the offense. We talked about the defense. I don't know much about the Vikings special teams. I can't really speak to that. They got the old Alabama kicker at kicker. He's been pretty good for them so far, I guess, but can't really speak too much to anything else.
I think that they're pretty much middle of the road, neither super great, neither, you know, bad.
Mhm.
They're functional, I would say, as a team when it comes to special teams. I was checking out their let's see where their grade is here just to make sure I'm not
They
here
actually
we
have a
go.
pretty bad average start to their drives offensively and defensively. Pretty far down.
So, like, according to the PFF ranks, Seahawks have the third best. Well, they got the best. They're number one right now. So PFF
Really?
has them as the number one special teams. I wouldn't have thought that seeing off of tape, but they've got them as the highest graded special teams unit in football. Seattle is the third highest graded special teams unit, according to for whatever you want to take that from with PFF. Of course, I think some of this, Brendan, is whenever I don't know if you ever look at the PFF scores for special teams grades. That's always one I look at and I go, I don't know how they determine what they're determining here on this. Like
Yeah,
it's
there's some stuff that I think is in their blind spot, like
yeah.
fullback stuff. There are so few fullbacks in the league. I wonder how they really grade fullback play because they've been grading Oots very poorly this year. And I'm not saying Oots is playing great this year, but I do wonder if how they're evaluating that. And uh, not that I don't like the way they judge offensive line stuff, but Gray's able getting like 30s and 40s in almost every game this year. And then he got like a 60 for this game, which I thought was his worst game of the year against Tennessee. I was like,
Mm.
what are they evaluating? What are they looking at? I don't get it.
Yeah, I think it gets tough. From my perspective on Zabel, I think that there's just been when it comes to the run game and pass blocking, he's been really good. No doubt that with that there. I think in run blocking, there's been a lot of struggles throughout the year in these games. And with how much you run the ball, Brendan, with how many first passing attempts, you're running the ball, way more in some of these games. And so that's just going to be a little bit more on brighter display as far as, some of that hole in his game. I think it's going to improve with time being a tackle convert to guard. And the more time he has to not only get wizened to the game and playing inside and used to it, but more stronger. And some of it's a strength thing where he's got the foot speed and he can latch on. He just can't keep always the latch in place there in the running game. Like I think it will come with time.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I'm feeling pretty good about that as well. I I just don't think the numbers capture reality. Like I look at that and they say Gray Zabel's one of the worst linemen in football. They think he's worse than Anthony Bradford. I'm like, I don't think that reflects reality well at all. Like, you can't tell me that Anthony Bradford is having a better season than Gray Zabel.
Yeah, I would say probably not. I think the degree of difficulty is much harder for Zabel than Bradford. He's dealing one-on-ones. Bradford's going to get a little bit more help to the right side. He's going to deal with nose tackle. Bradford's going to deal with nose tackles. Zabel's going to deal with three techs, by and large. I think that's one where there's just a tougher degree of difficulty with Zabel's having to deal with in there versus Bradford too, which is a bit of a part of this. But yeah, I mean, look, the grades are sometimes a little bit weird, and they're always there, in my opinion, to be a tool. They shouldn't be just thrown away. They should be a tool. But you put them in addition to what you see from the tape, and you match the eyes to the grades. And when you do that, it does tend to align for me for the most part. There are outliers here, but I feel like sometimes with PFF, this stuff gets overstated on how off they are. In my opinion, most of the grades fit in alignment to when I go back and watch the all 22 after the game, they fit to pretty well in alignment with that. They're not perfect. There's room for them to improve, but they are a tool. They are a measurement. They are capturing fairly well the performance on the field from these players individually.
Yeah, I agree. I think people are too hard on PFF, but I do think they have blind spots, and they're pretty easy to spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why you got to take that measure of it can't be the end all be all on the grade in that way. But at the same time, all 32 NFL teams are utilizing PFF in every way. It's not just snap counts and alignments, and that's what they're using PFF for. They're also taking into account with these grades, not as an end all be all determinant, but as an additional data piece to the rest of what they're trying to do to make their evaluations on these players to determine whether extend or trade or part of the core into the future.
Mm-hmm. So I think we said everything that needs to be said. So let's get some picks down, and that'll do it. So I think it's going to be kind of a sleepy game. I don't think we're going to whip them. I think we have the capacity to, but I think it's going to be kind of a 24-10 type game where we control it, but I'm not going too crazy this week.
Yeah, I do think you control it. I'm pretty much right along in alignment with you. I think Brosmer's going to have a hard time scoring on this defense. I think you'll find your share of consistent drives, especially early on in this game. I think it'll probably fit to somewhat of what we've seen from some of these games this year so far, where, you're able to just get out ahead of them. Maybe not a super amount, but a decent amount, then kind of close it out in the third quarter. I got 27-10. So I also see only 10 points being scored here. 27 for the Seahawks. I think you're going to have some headway here. And it just comes down to those same factors we talked about with offense and defense, being that this particular matchup, football is a matchup-based sport. This matchup of our defense against that offense, this defense against our particular offense, I don't think it's a good matchup for the Vikings on either side of the football.
Yeah, definitely. I really like this matchup. It's the exact opposite of last year, where I hated the thought of Brian Flores going up against Ryan Grubb. To me, that was just death.
Oh yeah. It's wild because we have a lot of the same, for the most part, somewhat of the same personnel we're trotting absent Gino. But I agree with you. It's wildly different. Not only the confidence coming in this game, but to know that you feel like your team's got the answers to be able to deal with what Flores is going to throw at their face.
Right. And the same goes for the other side of the ball as well, going from Darnold, who was good last year, to probably Brosmer. It's a world of difference.
Sam was a big and it wasn't he threw a ton of pass. He was throwing 45 passes in that game, but he made some big time throws in that game to help them win that. I mean, he really helped them carry that forward. They didn't just, like the other parts of the team wanted, and Sam just kind of just barely did his part, and they got the win off of it. It was him making some really big throws in that game. Let's face it, part of what had Mike McDonald on board with bringing him in this offseason was some of that performance against his defense.
Mm-hmm. Right. That might have been Darnold's best game of the second half of the year, because the second half of the year was where the offensive line got banged up and life was not coming to him so easy in that second half. And that was probably the best game that he played in that second half post Darisaw injury.
Yeah, I think that's certainly is definitely fair on that, because those offensive line injuries stacked up as the year kept going along. Right about that Rams game, it started to kick off.
Right. All right, guys. So we got a holiday tomorrow. We got a lot of football tomorrow. We got another game on Friday. So we're getting to that time of year where there's football almost every day. It feels like they just find a way to keep stacking games, which has its upsides and downsides, of course. But have a great holiday weekend to everybody who celebrates.
Please do out there.
Yeah, I'm going to be celebrating it tomorrow. Brandon, you got something planned?
Got family set for the family, so yeah, we'll be
Mhm.
doing our Thanksgiving here. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, all right. So everybody out there, have a good Thanksgiving and have a good Seahawks game on Sunday. Things are getting real. Things are getting serious now. Another couple of wins, and this team will basically have at least a playoff spot on lock. And if we can pile it up over these next 2 weeks against very beatable opponents, we're gonna be in a good spot, people. So buckle up for it. It's gonna be a fun stretch run. And don't forget, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.